Shenzhen is the country where technology is moving fast, where people are hyper ambitious, where they think outside the box to do certain things. And in that sense, it's going to be interesting for our members to go there and not only see how a really big convention center is run, to learn from the Shenzhen University how they train their people to become event professionals, but also to step a little bit outside the box and indeed visit companies like Tencent and see, okay, what is the future according to those companies? Because let's be clear, things like AI agents or augmented reality or the use of robotics will come to our space as well. And it will be inspiring to see what they're doing, and knowing also allows to prepare.
This is Associations Thrive, the podcast celebrating successful associations and their leaders. I'm your host, Joanna Pineda, CEO and Chief Troublemaker at Matrix Group International. Listen in as top association executives tell all, revealing the creative and innovative ways they're increasing membership, generating revenue, nurturing engagement, and reimagining their organizations. By the way, if you've launched a new initiative, created new member services, or updated your governance structure and are seeing great results, I want to hear your story, and so do my listeners. I'd love to have you as a guest. Go to podcast.matrixgroup.net and apply to be on Associations Thrive. Now let's dive into this week's show. Today, I'm speaking with Sven Bossu, CEO of the International Association of Convention Centers, or AIPC. Sven, welcome to the show.
Hey, Joanna. It's a pleasure to have me. Thank you.
Sven, tell us about AIPC.
AIPC is the Global Association of Convention Centers. It's representing about 200 members in 60 countries. And it's actually the buildings, it's the facilities. It's the places you go to a congress, to a convention. Those are our members.
So your members are the actual convention centers, and the people who actually take advantage of your benefits are the people who run the convention centers? Are they the building managers as well as the convention and visitors bureaus? Like, who are they?
The people who are benefiting from our services are the people working at convention centers. So that could be indeed the management level, but we also have a talent program for outgoing leaders. We have an academy program for middle management. So it's really all the people working at the convention centers who can benefit from our services, whether those are live events, educational ones, or whether those are digital services.
Now, Sven, you're the International Association of Convention Centers, but you call yourselves AIPC.
Yes.
So where's the P in all this?
Well, the key is history. We were created in 1958 in Paris.
Ah.
And so our name at that moment was the Association Internationale des Palais de Congrès, so the International Association of Congress Palaces. So that's where the P come from. And then we moved to Brussels. We changed from French into English, but we kept the name simply because it was a very strong brand and we didn't want to change it.
Wow, love that. Sven, where are your members?
The membership is global, so it's about 60 countries worldwide. For the moment, it's about 50% in Europe. We have about 10 to 15% in North America, 15% in Asia, another 10% in Australia, and the rest is between South America and Africa.
Wow.
And sometimes those figures are a bit misleading. So, for example, Australia, in percentage-wise, it doesn't mean that it's not that big. But if you look at the actual figures, it's almost every big convention center in Australia is a member of us.
Ah.
The same goes for Canada. We have 10 members in Canada, but those are the 10 biggest convention centers. So we have a pretty big coverage. Areas where we want to grow, we have 3 of them. It's Africa, because we do believe that the upcoming century is the one of Africa. In terms of population, in terms of economical growth, it's going to be massive. And that will have an impact also on organized events. We're looking at India, pretty much for the same reason. And then one of the markets we really would like to go a little bit further is Japan.
Ah.
Japan used to be for a long time a semi-closed market, mainly focused on national events. We are about international and global events. But since they had a number of big events and global events happening in Japan, they're slowly but surely opening up towards the global market. And we do believe that there could be value both for us going there and sharing the global knowledge of our community. But I think there's also a lot we can learn from how the Japanese do business and how they operate, because they do have this notion of operational excellence.
Yes.
We should have in all the industries over there, including the event industry. And that is really something interesting to see how they do that in practice.
Well, Sven, I've got a great story for you about operational excellence. My father-in-law is Japanese and my husband is half Japanese. Many years ago, we were in Japan and we were going to some little theme park. It was called Edo Wonderland. And we took a train and then a bus. And at the bus stop, my husband and father-in-law were looking at the bus schedule to try and figure out which bus we should take back to the train station. And so they're looking and they point to one time and they said, well, maybe we should take this bus. And I said, ooh, will that give us enough time to get on the train, like go to the bathroom, get something to eat and get on the train? What if the bus is late? And they both looked at me and said, why would it be late? And I thought, okay, I am done here. You all decide which bus to take.
And was it actually on time?
It was absolutely on time. And of course, we had enough time to go to the bathroom and get the bento lunch and get on the train. But it was just funny how they both turned to look at me and said, why would it be late? Anyway, all right. Well, Sven, we have a lot to talk about when it comes to AIPC, but let's talk about your journey. How'd you get to become CEO of AIPC?
Well, almost by accident, to be honest. I have a master in anthropology to start off with. And then I finished my studies. I had to find a job because I want to have my own apartment and get on my own feet. And by chance, I found a job in a bank, a junior position, but to start off with. And I stayed in the bank for about 10 years. And I was fortunate to have managers who gave me opportunities. And I systematically grew into different types of jobs. And then after 10 years, the person I was working for moved from the bank to SWIFT, which is a global society of telecommunication between banks. And 6 months later, he called me and said, you need to work here. It's really exciting. And I followed him and I worked for 10 years at SWIFT. And the last 5 years, I ran their global event, which is called CyBoss, which is bringing 8,000 to 10,000 bankers from across the world together for 4 days.
Oh.
And this is very high level. These are the CEOs of the Citibanks and the Goldman Sachs. And, it's a very sophisticated event. I ran that for 5 years and then it was time for a change. And also after 20 years in financial services, I was a bit tired of the focus on making money because at the end, that's what financial services are about. And I then worked for 2 years for a society which was not at all about money. It was about beating cancer. It was the European Society for Radiation Oncology. And I helped them transform their organization and I put more digital into that. And that mission was then finished. And I bumped into Marianne, who I knew for a very long time, who was running AIPC for, I think, 25 years. And she wanted to step down and have more time for the grandchildren. But she spent a long time looking for somebody. And we had lots of lunches, lots of coffees. And then she said, you need to do this. And then I rolled into AIPC. But the timing was a bit bizarre.
Oh, what was the timing? When did you become CEO?
May 2020.
Oh my God. Wait, hang on. So the pandemic is just starting to roll and you're going to be running an association of convention centers. What was that like?
It was scary. At that time, I think about 50% of our members were being shut down.
Already, right? Because in March, things were shutting down.
Absolutely. And that grew really fast. So by June, I think 95% of the members were being closed down. It was really, really exceptional that convention centers were still open. And that, in a way, was scary. On the other hand, together with the members of the board, and I was very fortunate to have a very supportive and empowering board, they said, see this as an opportunity to revisit whatever we do and make sure that we're prepared that once the pandemic is over, we're going to come out of this stronger than we are today. And knowing that in May 2020, everybody thought, yeah, that's going to happen in 2 months' time.
Right.
It took a little bit longer than that. And our members themselves went through big changes as well. I have members where they had to let go 90% of staff, 90.
Right.
But then there were other members who supported their communities. And that was so beautiful to see.
And what did they do? How did they support the communities?
So as you know, with the pandemic, we went through a number of phases. First, the hospitals did not have enough capacity. And if there's one thing that convention centers have, it's space.
Space, right.
And so, for example, Excel London, which is a massive facility, was turned into a gigantic hospital.
Wow.
And people were being brought into the convention center and they used it as a treatment area. And then after that, some of them were also converted into testing areas because it was very easy to go there, do your testing, get out again, because you had the space to do that.
Right.
And once we had the vaccination, quite a lot of our members were turned into vaccination areas.
Ah.
Just because you could do it in a safe way, you could walk in, walk out, you would have the space, you would have the split corridors. So in that sense, there was a massive support for the community. And some of the venues actually also thought about different things to support the community. And in Melbourne, for example, they turned one of the big halls into a massive drive-in cinema. Everybody would drive in their cars, they would stay in their bubble, but jointly they could still watch a movie.
Oh, that is lovely.
So you would still have that sense of community, but you would still respect the security rules.
Huh.
And those are the things people were thinking about and were doing actually. But I think the support convention centers gave to the medical world was quite impressive.
Well, let me ask you a question. So you're talking to the board. It's May 2020, and we're all thinking, this will be a couple months. But it wasn't a couple months. It was more like a couple of years. So you walked into this job thinking, this is a tough time, but we're going to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So what's that like to be at the helm of an organization during arguably one of the toughest times for convention centers? How did you and your board mentally struggle through that and survive?
Yeah, that was quite hard. And I think, so prior to this situation, the board met twice a year. During the pandemic, we met once a month. Those were short meetings. It were meetings 60 to 90 minutes maximum. And I think we spent half of them, everybody explaining what the situation was at their venue, the problems they had, because the people on the board are CEOs running those convention centers. And it was a very lonely position to be in for them at that time.
Right.
Because their staff was looking at them for answers. They were looking at them to give them some assurance. And they did not necessarily have the elements in their hands neither. And so one of the managers explained to me that she put on this really brave face towards the staff and tried to explain during Zoom meetings what was going on. And then she switched off the Zoom meeting. And then sometimes she had to cry because it was such a very hard position.
Right.
And then it helps that as a group of CEOs, you come together. And yes, there's no magical wand to solve the solution, but you can at least share experiences and let the other know you're not alone. If there's something wrong, just give me a call. We can talk about it. And I think that was so important, not only for the board and for the people on there, but also for the staff working at convention centers, that they knew, okay, we need to help each other. We need to stick together, talk to each other. And while there was no work, there were still a lot of Zoom meetings going on, simply because people wanted to know, are you still okay? Are you still coping?
Right, right.
And that worked. And then there was a lot of silly stuff as well. I think the silliest thing we ever did was a digital wine tasting.
Oh, yes. I remember all those. I attended I guess it was one of those drink making classes, and he told us how to make a smoke drink or something. I don't know. And we're all like doing crazy stuff in our kitchen. So, yeah.
It was a good time, but we stuck together and we came up with new ideas about the post-pandemic, but it took us a lot longer than we thought.
Right. Well, fast forward to today. It's January 2025. How's membership today?
Membership is actually very good. So for the first time ever, we're above 200 members.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you very much. We're thrilled about that. We're also thrilled about the fact that we were seeing members coming in from different countries like China, like also some African members coming in. And that makes us think that those are new members with new needs. And so we're continuously adapting what we do in order to support them better. But from a membership point of view, it's thriving. From a financial point of view, we're in a very good situation as well. You should know that during the pandemic, P&L was cut by about 50%. We had to adapt our entire structure.
Yeah.
But as a result of that, we're now far more resilient than lean. And if you need to scale up, we can do it in a very cost-effective way. In that sense, it has been good learning as well. But today, we're in a really good position. We also are, I think, better prepared if a crisis would happen going forward.
Wow, you just shared a lot there. So let me unpack it one at a time. You said you've got new members coming from Africa, for example, and they're bringing with them new needs. So what are some of these new needs that the new members are coming up with?
I think what you're seeing in the African community is they have great facilities, they have great people, but there's a bit of a perception that if you go to Africa, everything is going to be cheap, and that's not the case. If you're going to Cape Town in South Africa, the facility is beautiful, the service is very high level, so you will pay the price. And so what they're dealing with is this perception that the product would be inferior to some of the product offerings in other countries, which is not the case at all. And so what they are looking for is quality standards. What they are looking for is trainings so that they can say when they sell themselves, hang on, we have a quality stamp by AIPC. We are a gold member. And the gold member means this. Those are the things you need to do there. The same goes for China, but that's for a different reason. And that's actually quite interesting. So the Chinese government really wants to promote international conferences coming to China. And they're doing massive investment in facilities. But they also recognize that having the facility as such is not enough. You also need to be able to sell it, to market it, to operate it. And there, once again, they do need educational support. They do need the know-how from our other global members so that they can learn and grow really, really fast. And the Chinese government actually supports that. So if a convention center applies for AIPC membership, they will get a subvention for that. Because they know that it's a way to grow and to learn.
Wow. Well, speaking of China, your annual conference this year is in Shenzhen, China.
Yes.
Tell us about that. Have you been to China before?
I've been there a couple of times, and I was in Shenzhen in December just for a site visit and really to close down the things we need to close down for our annual conference. It is a fascinating zone. So Shenzhen is in the triangle of Hong Kong and Macau. So Hong Kong, Shenzhen it's about 20 minutes ride with the fast train.
Oh.
From Shenzhen to Macau, it's an hour with the ferry. But Shenzhen itself is sitting in the Silicon Valley of China. There's a lot of big tech companies there, like Build Your Dream, like Tencent. And it's a very ambitious region. And you can see that at their facility, because Shenzhen World, where we're going to have our annual conference, is the biggest convention center in the world. It's 400,000 square meters.
Oh my God.
It has 2 subway stations underneath it. If you're in a golf cart, it takes you about 20 minutes to get from one side to the other. In terms of size, like a lot of things in China, the size is completely different. Shenzhen City is about 18 million people. That's almost double of the country I live in, Belgium. And that's one city. So scale is something completely different there.
So why go to China, though, for your annual conference? What's the draw for the members?
The draw for the members is going to be a learning experience. So last year we went to Costa Rica. Costa Rica was all about sustainability. It's a very sustainable country.
Yes.
Shenzhen is the country where technology is moving fast, where people are hyper ambitious, where they think outside the box to do certain things. And in that sense, it's going to be interesting for our members to go there and not only see how a really big convention center is run, to learn from the Shenzhen University how they train their people to become event professionals, but also to step a little bit outside the box and indeed visit companies like Tencent and see, okay, what is the future according to those companies? Because let's be clear, things like AI agents or augmented reality or the use of robotics will come to our space as well. And it will be inspiring to see what they're doing, and knowing also allows to prepare.
So it sounds like by bringing your members to China, you're introducing them to a fabulous new venue, introducing them to some different practices, but also kind of showing them the future about what a convention of the future will look like.
Absolutely. So that's why we have the theme of this year's annual conferences, Meet the World, See the Future.
Ah.
So if you happen to be around, you're most welcome to join us.
Oh my God, maybe I will. I've been to Hong Kong, but not Shenzhen. Let's turn to something different. You have something called the Future Shapers Leadership Program, which you say you're really proud of. So what is it?
A little bit of background on that one, because I'm extremely proud of the program. It's one of the things we came up with during the pandemic, whereby we saw a massive outflux of young talent and said, okay, we need to be ready once we're back in business to come up with ways to keep our talent. And not only to keep it, but to grow it and to foster it. And so we created a leadership program, which is really for a really, really small group. It's 15 people maximum. And we take you to a 8 to 9 month journey.
Ah.
We give you lectures on leadership. We will give you lectures on venue design. We will give you lectures on crisis management. And that's one part of it. And those are global thought leaders sharing their experience. We will put you in front of venue CEOs from across the world. You can ask them any question you want, anything. They will give you an answer. That as such is already a unique opportunity.
Right.
But then she said, okay, that's what we're giving to you, but we would like to have something back. Because you're a collective of really, really intelligent people. You see the challenges we face as an industry, come up with a solution. And so they need to come up with a concept, turn it into a business case, turn it into a paper. And then at the end, they need to come to the annual conference, go on stage in front of 150 CEOs and explain what they want to achieve.
Oh, wow.
And so the learning curve is quite tremendous. And what we have seen with people going through the program is that at the end of the program, quite a lot of them are being promoted to other functions, more senior, are given more responsibilities simply because the things they learn, they put them into practice and they grow as they go. And so it's so amazing to see those people grow in a relatively short time frame, knowing that, and that's the other unique aspect of it, the first part of it is purely digital. Because these are people from Canada, from Australia, from Cape Town, South Africa. And during the lectures, okay, that's fine, but then they need to work together in a digital way. And then at the end, 2 days before the annual conference, they come together physically for the first time, 2 days before they need to pitch on stage.
Wow.
And so what we're seeing is that at the end of that experience, the group is so tight and they keep in touch and they continue to share experiences. I think that's one of the very valuable things is that you give back to the community. And at the end of the last cohort, we had the team working on a big problem, which is, at the one hand, you have young talents worldwide looking for something very exciting to do. And on the other hand, you have the event industry, which has a lot of exciting opportunities. But where's the bridge? Where's the island between the two? And so they came up with the idea, why don't we create a kind of a Tinder for the event industry?
Oh.
Whereby you would have, on the one hand, our global membership, so the 200 venues looking for talent, saying, these are the talents we need. They do job postings, but also testimonials of people already working on those venues, human resource department sharing best practices. That's one block. And then on the other hand, you would have the universities, the high schools, but also individuals looking for a new job. And that would allow, for example, my son is studying civil engineering. He's now 20. He will be done in 2 years' time. Just imagine, I said, you know, Dad, I think the event industry is nice, but I don't want to stick in Belgium. Is there a job opportunity in Australia? Is there a job opportunity in New York? Because our world is a global world.
Right, right.
And I think the role of the young talents is a global world as well. They don't necessarily stick to the place they live. They want to see things. They want to feel things. They want to experience things. I think by creating this platform, which is creating the bridge between two worlds, we can give something to young and upcoming talent, which is quite unique.
Well, what's amazing about this is you're taking some of the brightest minds, exposing them to some of the most successful and smartest minds, and then challenging them to create something new and different. And I'm wondering, Sven, you previously were head of innovation at Estro, am I right?
Correct, yeah.
So I think you're kind of steeped in this culture of how do we innovate to solve problems? And then you went through the pandemic. So I think you are uniquely qualified to be leading this organization. How interesting. Wow. Something to think about. I've actually seen this as a theme on this podcast recently, where CEOs are saying we're creating these programs that have intensive education, but also community and coaching and mentoring. And it goes way beyond a webinar or two, but it's really creating an educated cohort of people who are now very tight and really shaking up the profession.
Absolutely. That's what we want to achieve. And we're seeing it happen. It would not be possible without the support of the board. It would not be possible without the support of our members, because they need to allow their people to take the time to actually go and see the annual conference. But when they see the result of it, I'm very proud of it. But I can tell you, the CEO of the person on stage, they beam.
Right, right.
Introverts all of a sudden pitching on stage. It's pretty amazing.
Well, imagine now that person comes back to your organization, a different person.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of being global, you've got these academies. Are they all over the world? They're regional? Talk to us about those, because that's a different type of education.
That's a different one. So we call them academies. They're kind of a 5-day boot camp. Once again, it's small groups. It's for middle management, up to 35 people. And we used to have one in Brussels, which was very successful. We brought people from across the world together. And through a week, we're sitting in a resort surrounded by a forest. So we can't escape.
Right.
The nearest city is like 10 kilometers away. You're pretty much condemned to stay to each other for an entire week. But it's a very nice environment to be in. It's a forest. It has sport facilities. It has a spa. It has a very good bar. And through 5 days, you're going to get lectures. You're going to get workshops. You're going to get team challenges, touching upon all different aspects of convention center management. But whereas the Future Shapers is really focusing on high-level leadership, these ones go a little bit more hands-on. This is also about, for example, if you have conflicts on the shop floor, how do you deal with them? If you have a crisis happening, what are the steps to go through? And this is physical, so it's really bringing people together for a week. What we did see, though, is that because it was in Brussels, some communities couldn't make it. If you're in Australia, if you're sitting in Africa, if you're sitting sometimes even in North America, from a budget and time allocation point of view, it's very hard to do that investment.
Yeah, you're gone a whole week, right?
Yeah. And so we flipped it. We said, okay, we're keeping that one in Brussels, the global one. But next to that, we will also have an academy in Toronto. We will also have one in Cape Town, and we will also have one in Melbourne. And this year, 25, is actually the first year we're going to have all 4 of them happening, which is amazing, because I never thought we would be able to pull that off, because it's quite a lot of work. And also you need to be sure that you have enough people in the classroom. But the interest is there, the enthusiasm is there. And it's for the moment is thriving. I must say, from an organization point of view, and that's one of the things we learned during the pandemic, is that you need to change model. So in the European one, we run everything ourselves, from registration to the housing, to the courses, to everything we organize ourselves. For the African one, we worked with a local project manager. And the local project manager did the heavy logistical lifting, like transport, hotels, facility, catering, and we could focus on content.
Oh, that is lovely. So you're able to bring your education without having to have the project management infrastructure locally.
So we don't need to have an army to do this. We can really focus on the content. We can leverage the program in Brussels to other destinations. Some of the speakers actually travel with us because they love the concept so much. So we have one speaker from a technology firm. He loves the concept and he flies with us wherever we go. So if we say we're doing one in Melbourne, he says, I'm happy to go there. Because for him, he is the chief innovation officer at Momentous, Steve McKinsey. And he says, I spend 1 week, and he spends the entire week there with young upcoming middle management. They are telling me, these are the things you need to watch out for. These are the things we need. And there's no marketing research in the world who can give me that insight.
Wow.
And he says, if I need to do the investment, to go to the academies and spend a week with you there, the return on investment is immediately there. There's no doubt about that. And our participants can imagine that now, Momentous, 80% of our members use that technology. All of a sudden, they're sitting at the bar with the chief innovation officer.
Right. And bending his ear about what they need.
Well, and sometimes what they need can be, a beer, and that's fine as well.
Right.
But they have some really, really good discussions. And one of the things I've learned is that when we have those, 10 o'clock in the evening, like Cinderella, I go to my room. Because sometimes it's very late evenings if you don't pay attention.
Right. Yeah. Hey, well, speaking of innovation and these young leaders, what will conventions of the future look like? Because it sounds like that's what you are helping your members to explore by going to China, by having these academies, by having the future shapers leaders come up with these business plans. What will, an annual conference or an international conference at McCormick Center in Chicago look like, or at Shenzhen, Convention Center look like?
It's going to look very different in a number of ways. Remember those conferences where you would go to for 4 days and you would be in a room without windows?
Yes.
Theater style, and you would listen to speakers for a couple of days? Those days are gone. If you want to listen to a speaker, you're going to do it via Zoom. If you want to go to a conference center or to a convention, you need to be convinced. And you're going to be convinced because it's going to be unique experiences. It's going to be logistically different in the sense that loads of venues who are now revamping there have spaces with open windows, with lots of natural light.
Oh.
The seating is no longer theater. It has all types of chairs in one room. If you want a beanbag, sit up front in beanbag. If you want to stay at the back at the high-end table to do some work, that's fine as well. And you're creating individual experiences and individual journeys. And the other thing is, which is really important, is that, and that for convention centers is mandatory going forward, every participant, independently of the community they come from, needs to be feeling safe and welcome. And both are important. It has to do with inclusivity. Independently of the community you're from, independently of your physical abilities, you need to be feeling safe and secure. You need to be feeling welcomed in that building. That's a big job. Because, for example, once again, I'm referring to my son. He says, when I go to a conference, sometimes I like to be with the crowd and listen to things and network. But sometimes I just want some time for myself.
Of course.
And as a convention center, we need to cater for that. And so, for example, in Calgary, they have a brand new convention center where you have the conference rooms that have natural light, etc. But in the middle of it, there is a massive networking space. It's like a really big living room with a really big fireplace. And independently from the event which is happening, you can go there, plug in your laptop, be by yourself, in this very inspiring Zen environment. And I think the conventions of the future are going to be about that. While it still is about bringing together a community for a purpose, it also needs to cater for individual expectations and experiences.
Wow. Well, I'm looking forward to these conventions of the future, and it sounds like your members are really ushering them in. Sven, during the prep, you talked about how workforce development is a problem for the industry. There's just not enough people entering the convention industry. So I have a 20-year-old as well, and I have a 14-year-old. What would you say to them about joining this industry? Why join?
Because it's the most fascinating industry in the world.
That's a bold claim.
Yeah, well, I started in financial services. Financial services are very simple. You start in the audit department and you will die in the audit department. That's how that world works. If you're working in the event space, the only thing I can really compare it with is the control center of NASA. On a systematic basis, you're going to launch rockets. And as a team, you're going to celebrate those successes. And what you do by delivering those unique experiences, by delivering those events, is you're helping communities make this world a better place. Whether it's an event like COP26, which took place in Glasgow, which brought the entire world together to think about climate, whether it's medical communities thinking about beating cancer, you facilitate that. You make it happen.
Wow.
That's what we do. And from a strictly personal and professional point of view, if you talk to most of the people who are running those convention centers, nobody had a linear career path. They started off at one place, they went to another place, they discovered, they grew. Because in the event industry, it is about who you are and what your personal skills are. What's your mindset? Can you drive? Can you deliver? If you can do that, we love you and we'll give you so much opportunities.
Well, Sven, we will put a link in the show notes to your website, as well as maybe some of these interesting conferences that you're talking about, and a link to your members directory, because it sounds like they're just innovative and dynamic and really ushering in the future. Sven, this was an amazing interview. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you'll come back in the future.
I will, definitely.
Give us some more information about the trends and tell us about conventions we need to be attending.
It will be a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Associations Thrive. We're so glad to have you here. You know, my personal mission and the mission of my company, Matrix Group International, is to help associations and nonprofits increase membership, generate revenue, and thrive in the digital space. I want to hear stories of how your organization is thriving in today's challenging landscape. Please apply to be on my show by going to podcast.matrixgroup.net. By the way, do you need help with a digital initiative? Maybe it's a website redesign, a new membership database, or a hybrid meeting that you're planning. I'd love to connect with you. Please visit the Matrix Group website at matrixgroup.net. Thanks again for listening to this week's episode of Associations Thrive. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a 5-star rating, post a comment, and share it with your colleagues and friends. Bye!